Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It's 5:07. A good Monday morning to one and all. And thanks for tuning into O'Connor and Company. Coming up at 6:35, we'll talk to Amy Riccardi. She's running for Loudoun County School Board. 7:05, Joe DeGeneva with the latest legal news. And at 8:05, Maryland State Delegate Mark Fisher with the latest Maryland news. I'm Julie Gunlock alongside Hans von Spakovsky of the Heritage Foundation. Good morning, Hans.
Good morning, Julie. Am I the only one who feels like I've lost an hour of sleep?
I mean, it's particularly brutal for us, right?
Yeah, it is.
It really is. I asked you, we ran into each other in the elevator. I said, how are you doing? How do you feel? And he's like, tired. Feel tired. Yeah.
Well, everybody's starting off the same this morning.
Yes, everyone is. How was your weekend?
I spent the whole weekend running errands, but it was actually a nice weather weekend. The sun was out. I actually put the top down on my convertible for the first time.
Really?
I did have to wear a coat while I was driving, but other than that.
That's so nice. Also very nice that I still drive a clunky kid car, so maybe someday. So, Hans, Larry's been out. We were a little bit vague about it on Friday. If you looked at his Twitter account yesterday, you know that his father did pass away. Larry's was with his father. He was with his father in February when his father's health started to sort of rapidly decline. He came home and then had to go out there this weekend. And I'm so glad Larry was with his father when his father died again yesterday. So Larry is out again today. We do really appreciate you coming in, kind of a last minute thing.
Well, look, it's really nice to be with you, although I certainly regret the circumstance. And all of us, our thoughts and prayers are with Larry and his three brothers, his stepmom.
He's one of four.
Yeah,
boys.
You're right, quite a family.
Yes. His father was born in 1937. Larry wrote I really encourage everyone, first of all, go to Twitter and check out Larry's timeline because he talks quite a bit and has some really wonderful memories of his father. And he wrote this beautiful, I'm not sure it's an obituary, but he said, I've been tasked by myself, mind you, because I'm a masochist with writing something about him. And again, he wrote this, I believe, last night. He said a column and a eulogy, a biography, whatever you want to call it. He talks about how his father was born in 1937, and he was just days away from turning 88 years old. So a good, long life.
Yeah, and not only was his father a football star in high school, but now, Larry's always talking about his love of show tunes. Now we know where he got it. He got it from his father.
Exactly. So he says, my dad was a high school football star, a hulking Irish German-American kid from the suburbs of Detroit. You'd think a guy like that would spend his life reminiscing about the glory days, boring the heck out of his four sons with stories of goal line stands and homecoming parades. But no, Dad traded the pigskin for Puccini, the gridiron of a streetcar named Desire, and the locker room for a kitchen where he'd wield a wooden spoon like it was Excalibur. He was a Renaissance man in a graphic T-shirt, a guy who could chop an onion finer than a tax lawyer's loophole and then sit you down to explain why Verdi's La Traviata was better than anything Rodgers and Hammerstein ever dreamed up. He didn't just teach me and my brothers how to cook, listen, or watch. He taught us how to live like the world was a buffet and you'd be a fool not to try everything. He talked about how his father met his mom at a dance hall in 1955 and won her over with a jitterbug and a bad joke about Eisenhower. He married his high school sweetheart, sure, but it all fell apart in the late 60s, early 70s when everything normal in our country was falling apart. He said, I could write more. I could write how he worked over 30 years at a job he probably hated just to keep me in sneakers and Shakespeare tickets. But a book's too much and a column's too little. It's like trying to paint the Sistine Chapel on a Post-it note. You can't do it, and if you try, you just end up with a smudge and a headache. What's worse is the legacy bit. Dad's gone, and now we're left to figure out what's left behind. It's a really beautiful column. He ends by saying, I am the man I am because you taught me You steered me, you raised me. I am who I am because you were who you were. Legacy, that's what it means. I'll keep cooking your recipes, humming your tunes, and telling your stories, even if they're only half true. That's the best I can do. The rest is just gravy. And now I'm going to tear up. That's a wonderful tribute to his father.
Well, it is. But, what he said, look, both my parents passed away a number of years ago. But our parents live on in two things, our memories and what they created, which is us.
That's right. And, Larry has raised a wonderful family. He's got 4 wonderful kids. There's a picture of his father here, and I can't believe how much it looks like Larry. He included these in his Twitter. He tweeted this sort of this eulogy or article about his father, and I encourage all of you. It's much longer. I read a little bit of it, but it's much longer, and it's worth a read. And it includes some pictures of his father, of Larry's brothers, again, 3 brothers, and most hilariously, a picture of Larry in high school in a college play, in a high school play. And he also mentions that his father never missed one of his plays, which is so sweet.
Which is another very important thing for parents to realize. Work. Yeah, you have to earn a living. You have to work, but it is important to go to all of your kids' activities in schools. And I remember the same thing about my parents. They always showed up for whatever was going on at school that I was participating in.
Yeah, you got to show up. You got to show up. It means a lot to kids. And Larry's father certainly did. Larry, again, he has a big family. He's got 4 brothers, and he has Larry's stepmother, who he calls Mom, is surviving. So he's still out there, and he'll probably be out there, I imagine, for a couple more days. But we are thinking of you, Larry O'Connor, and wishing you the best. And it's going to be a tough couple days, but you are such a good son, a wonderful father, and a great friend. And we again, you're in our thoughts and prayers. Right now, it is 5:15.
It is not a criminal violation to enter the country illegally. It's not a criminal. It's a crime. It's not a crime, which is why they're so frustrated, because they really want our local law enforcement to go out and round up people when they could be looking out for the murderers and the sexual abusers as well as the robbers. They want them to go and round people up on civil accusations.
Oh, my goodness, Hans. I mean, honestly, it really is a battle in my mind who the dumbest member of Congress is, but I think that she takes the cake. Let's just go over what she said. It is not a crime to enter the country illegally. What do you think of that, Hans?
I'm wondering whether she can read, because there's a federal statute on this, and I hate to tell her, but if you enter the United States illegally the first time, it is a federal crime. It's a misdemeanor, and then if you do it more than once, it turns into a felony.
Yeah.
But then you look, she's part of the whole defund police crowd. All those who want to close down all our prisons. So what does she think is a crime? And remember, she said she was talking about murderers and others, but the Biden administration was also allowing them to remain in the country.
That's right. That's right. One thing about this video, and I know we're on the radio and this is visual, but you can see this in our show prep. Notice the picture behind her. She's got Shirley Chisholm, who was the first female, I believe, Black congresswoman.
Right.
And she has her picture right behind her, and next to her picture is a picture of herself. They're side by side, suggesting, she sort of reaches this level of.
Yeah, I don't have a photograph of myself in my office. I'll tell you that.
It's not just a photo; it's a huge photo, and the photos are sort of similar in that they're both standing at podiums giving speeches. So She clearly sees herself in this way, kind of pretty audacious there. Yeah, so she said, this was on the Katie Fang show. She discussed her recent performance at a House committee hearing on sanctuary city policies. She used the time to explain to the audience that illegally entering the country was not a crime. But she called it a civil accusation, meaning illegal immigrants are not criminals. Is civil accusation some sort of legal term? I've never heard of that.
It's not. And you know what tells you just how wrong she is listen, one of the icons of the civil rights movement was Barbara Jordan, black congresswoman from Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Same. And, Barbara Jordan was put in charge of the Immigration Reform Commission that Bill Clinton put together. And she was issued a report saying, allowing all these illegal aliens into the country, who does it hurt the most? African Americans, because it takes their jobs away from them. Barbara Jordan would be rolling over in her grave knowing what this congresswoman is now saying.
Well, she really is an embarrassment.
She is.
And yet the Democrats keep putting her front and
Right.
center. She has become essentially their spokeswoman. And I think a lot of Republicans are like, more, please. Yes. Keep her in the spotlight. Because no normal person would agree with her.
No, they don't. And in fact, that's the reason that Donald Trump got elected to office. She's so out of touch, not just with her constituency in Texas, but folks all over the country.
Last week it kind of went viral, a video of her being interviewed where she does these dances. She talks, she talks in this very sort of vulgar way. She's constantly cussing. She's pretty vile if you get her in like right after the not the State of the Union, the presidential address. She was, again, cussing and just talking in this way that just seemed very aggressive. And then they put a video side by side of her when she was first elected. And I mean, she sounded, like the most well-educated, well-spoken, soft-spoken young woman. And it just tells you, and then you look into her background.
So she's putting on an act.
Putting on an act. She went to a very expensive private school. She grew up in sort of affluent areas. So it's a complete act. It's really unfortunate.
Well, no, it's patronizing. She's patronizing her constituency. And, I don't know if you saw this, Jill, but there was just an article about how all these formerly blue counties in Texas are turning red, particularly the ones along the border, and it's because of this issue. Illegal aliens being allowed to come into the country, and she's on the wrong side of that issue.
She's from Texas. People forget that. They really do. They forget that she's from Texas. And for a Texas representative, after what Texans on the border have been through, I'm not familiar with her district. Are you? Is it a border? It's not a border
No,
district.
it's not. But she should realize just how bad things are in Texas. The Texas Rangers put out a report on the number of crimes committed in the state by illegal aliens. How many are in jail? It is in the hundreds of thousands. I mean, it's just shameful that someone with that attitude, frankly, from Texas is in Congress.
Well, it's clear that she sees herself as a national figure now. Texas doesn't matter to her. She's entirely focused on sort of national politics. Again, her constituents don't matter. She treats them terribly. She condescends to them. And so it's clear she again doesn't really care about her constituents or Texas. And we've got more to come. It is 5:23.
Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It is 5:37. Thanks for letting us be a part of your early day. It's a great Monday morning in the nation's capital, and you're listening to O'Connor and Company. Coming up at 6:35, Amy Riccardi. She's running for Loudoun County School Board. 7:05, Joe DeGenova with legal news. And at 8:05, we'll talk to Maryland State Delegate Mark Fisher. He has the latest Maryland news. I'm Julie Gunlock alongside my friend Hans von Spakovsky of the Heritage Foundation. Good morning, Hans.
Good morning, Julie. Glad to be with you, even though it's really early.
It's really early. And we talked about the last hour, we talked about how Larry O'Connor, his father, passed away yesterday. We're thinking of him. and hoping he's feeling okay this morning, and he'll be back likely later this week. Hans, you've probably been watching all of the problems at Columbia University. It's just shocking what's going on there.
It is shocking, particularly because they didn't seem to want to do anything about it.
They didn't. It was all...
I mean, the anti-Semitism there was just... To see that happening in America, it's just terrible. And, these protesters, they weren't protesters. They were engaging in riots. They were
terrorism.
They were destroying buildings. They were threatening students. They were keeping students from being able to go to the classes that their parents, and unfortunately all of us paid for.
That's right.
With federal grants, and they weren't doing anything about it.
No, the university wasn't doing anything. This weekend, Education Secretary Linda McMahon, she talked on Fox. Oh, I'm sorry, this was on Friday. She spoke about the problems at Columbia. Let's listen to cut 2.
This is not about free speech. This is about violence to students, attacking faculty. They need to call in the police. They need to get rid of this. But other than that, I think there's some systemic issues. We keep seeing this over and over again. And why is that? We have radical professors on campus. They're not really vetting the students who are coming in as much as they should be. What money is coming in from foreign influence? And all of that, I think, is playing into this.
Yeah, it has, but we have watched this. Obviously, during the Biden administration, there was that fiery hearing a couple years ago where the president of Columbia and Northwestern and what was the other? I can't remember, came up to Capitol Hill. MIT, that's right, came up to Capitol Hill and refused to basically say that they would protect Jewish students on campus. Real cowardly behavior from these university presidents, of course, sort of cloaking themselves as champions of free speech, while again refusing to protect the students who were being attacked and barred from, not given access to certain buildings and really essentially terrorized.
Yeah, what I found interesting was that the interim president, the replacement, Katrina Armstrong, she acknowledged that they have a real problem there. And in fact, I think at one point she said that their disciplinary process in the past had just been on paper. They hadn't actually been doing anything about any of these students. What really struck me about all this was that, look, Columbia University is a private school. They have a huge endowment. It's very expensive to go to school there. My kids aren't there. Your kids aren't there. So why, when I was looking at their budget in 2024, they got $1.3 billion from the federal government. Why are you and I paying for Columbia University?
Right. Well, apparently that is a little bit of that is coming to an end. The Trump administration on Friday announced that it would cancel approximately $400 million. That's a lot.
It is.
In federal grants to Columbia University. The administration said, quote, due to the school's continued inaction in the face of persistent harassment of Jewish students. The move comes just days after the administration's Joint Task Force to Combat Anti-Semitism notified Columbia that it was going to conduct a comprehensive review of the university's federal grant and contracts. The task force includes a bunch of staffers from different departments, Justice, HHS, Education, for however long it still exists, and the U.S. General Services Administration. In a statement explaining the cancellation of certain federal grants Friday, Education Secretary Linda McMahon implied that Columbia had not complied with federal anti-discrimination laws. Columbia's interim president, Katrina Armstrong, said in a statement Friday that there was no question, this is what you referenced, that the cancellation of government funds would impact the university's critical functions. She also assured Columbia affiliates that the university's administration is committed to working with the government to address legitimate concerns, and that combating anti-Semitism on the university's campus is its number one priority. Well, it's about time.
It is, and hopefully Columbia is just the first, because this kind of mayhem was going on at other places besides Columbia, and a lot of other schools also did not do anything about it.
Really quickly, we're running up against time here, but really quickly, more good news on this sort of radical Columbia University student activist. The leader of one of these protests was arrested, detained, and he has now had his green card and student visa revoked. Hans, really quickly, I've heard a lot of chatter out there. Oh, they can't revoke his green card. It's not true, right?
Well, yeah, they can. There's all kinds of grounds given under federal law, and particularly someone who was organizing basically riots. They can take away his green card.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a national security thing.
It is a national security thing, and I hope this guy enjoys going back to Gaza.
Yeah, me too. Secretary Marco Rubio issued a statement that said those who support designating terrorist organizations, including Hamas, because that's what they did, Hans.
Yes.
They literally were like river to the sea. Hamas is doing great work. I mean, it was absolutely vile what these protesters were saying, including Hamas, threaten our national security. Rubio went on to say the United States has zero tolerance for foreign visitors who support terrorists. Violators of U.S. law, including international students, face visa denial or revocation and deportation. And Senator Tom Cotton went on to explain that a green card or student visa does not give individuals the right to break our laws, harass our students, and openly sympathize with terrorists. He went on to say, I commend Secretary Rubio for taking swift action and revoking the visas of those involved in criminal activity. I really hope we see more of this. I really hope. I mean, I'm glad one guy was arrested and detained. I hope we see hundreds detained and deported. This has to stop, and they have to send a message.
Yep, and deportation is, hey, they could have been criminally prosecuted. There are actually federal civil rights laws that apply to what this guy was doing.
Yeah, we've got more coming up. It is 5:44.
WMAL, making sense of world events, because those who don't know history are doomed to repeat it. Download the WMAL app to stream us for free.
You know, just before we went to break, I said, I hope it isn't just one guy that gets arrested and deported. I hope they do more of this. And the same with the 400 million. That sounds like a lot, but you just looked something
up. No, I checked Columbia University's own site, and they have a $15 billion endowment. $15 billion. So anyone who says, "Oh, this is going to hurt educational opportunities at Columbia," no, they have plenty of money to make up not getting $400 million. And again, it brings up, why are you and I and taxpayers in the rest of the country? Why are we subsidizing a private university that has a $15 billion endowment?
A private university that's an incubator for Jewish hatred, for hatred of the Jewish people, and promoting the idea of the river to the sea, eradicating the Jewish state. I mean, why are we supporting this? I want to get to Ted Cruz. There was a hearing last Wednesday on anti-Semitism on college campuses, and Senator Cruz pointed out something very important. Let's go to cut 3.
Anti-Semitism is evil, it is wrong, and it is flourishing with the acquiescence and, in many cases, active participation of students, of faculty, of administrators, and government officials. And sadly, the Democrat Party has a deep and pervasive problem confronting this evil. For the last 2 years, in the wake of October 7th, this committee held 0 hearings on anti-Semitism in the United States, despite the fact that Republicans repeatedly called for it. The acts of violence prior to October 7th, 3,669 anti-Semitic incidents occurred in the United States. Following October 7th, in less than 3 months, that number spiked to over 5,000. In 2024, that number skyrocketed to 10,005 anti-Semitic incidents. This problem is particularly acute on our college campuses. Columbia University was a major epicenter where they encouraged, tolerated, and celebrated this vicious and vile anti-Semitism. I got it. We're good. Rabbi Eli Buehler emailed every Jewish student on campus and said, quote, "The events of the last few days have made it clear that Columbia University's public safety cannot guarantee Jewish students' safety in the face of extreme anti-Semitism and anarchy. I would strongly recommend you return home."
He went on for a little bit, but he's pointing out here that the Democrats don't care. He pointed out those astonishing numbers of violence against Jewish people in this country, and Democrats didn't have one hearing. I mean, October 7th is basically the worst attack on Jews since the Holocaust, and they didn't have any hearings on it. Nothing.
No, and the Justice Department, the U.S. Justice Department under Joe Biden, under Merrick Garland, did not use. Look, the civil rights of these Jewish students were violated.
Yeah.
In terrible ways, and there are not just federal civil rights statutes. There are criminal civil rights statutes that have been used on numerous and multiple occasions. They didn't use them at all against a single one of these agitators.
Nope. And again, because there were no consequences, it got worse and worse and worse. I'll say, okay, so what we laid out here is the Democrats have no hearings. They're not interested. They just look the other way. And then the Republicans have this hearing. Okay, it's important. You hear Ted Cruz laying out why this is so important and how terrible it is that this has been ignored for years under the Biden administration and in the Democrat-controlled Senate. Let's play cut 4, because do you think any Democrats were at this hearing? Cut 4.
If you agree that is evil and vile, let me ask you something. Where are the Democrats? Not a one is here. And it's because the Democrat Party has decided the pro-Hamas wing of the party is more important than protecting Jewish students in America. And if you don't believe me, maybe you'll believe Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer, texting with Columbia, said the following. On January 4th, then President of Columbia, Shafik, explained to Shipman and her fellow co-chair David Greenwald that she had met with Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, who advised Shafik that universities' political problems about anti-Semitism are really only among Republicans. We, the Democrats, we don't care about this anti-Semitism stuff.
This is the kind of thing that makes you just shake your head and say, what is wrong with the Democrats? This is something we should all agree on. It's absolutely disgusting how the Democrats have acted here.
Yeah, no, it is. But what Ted Cruz, unfortunately, is correct is that Hamas, there's a Hamas wing.
There is.
It seems like in the Democratic Party, and this, it's really good to see the Trump administration actually take this step to make Columbia realize it has a serious problem and it has got to do something about it.
Yeah, but as you have pointed out, that $400 million is just a drop in cut grants. It's a drop in the bucket. We want to see more of that. More coming up. It's 5:53 here on O'Connor and Company.